Today it's my pleasure to talk to Andrew Jenkins. He's the director of Shadow Lurkers, a feature short film. So thanks a lot, Andrews, for talking with me today.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. This is cool. I love doing this.
So first of all, let's tell me and all the viewers out there a little bit of about your background. I understand you have a very interesting background.
I currently am a commercial director, doing lots of work from anybody from Nike to, NBC, BMW, which in many ways was kind of the best trade school for directing because commercials are a very short, concise medium, and so you get to play with all kinds of gear, and every project's different. So some project might be very effects intensive, another one might be all about a camera technique, and another one might be all about actors and performances. So in many ways, those come together when it comes time to making a feature film or a featurette like we did with Shadow Lurkers.
Mm-hmm. So how long did you have the idea of making the film Shadow Lurkers?
It's one of those ones that came kind of quickly. The short story of the big story is about a year ago, came up with the idea of Shadow Lurkers for the full script, the idea of everybody, man, woman, child, no matter how old, young you are, any part of the world, all of us can relate to the fact that at some point we've been in our bed late at night afraid of a shadow on our wall. And I just love the idea that it's a universal fear in the same way that Jaws for generations had people afraid to go in the water. So once I came up with that concept, the rest of it came very, very quickly. And I presented the idea to some people I'm working with, a company called Leverage. They produce shows like Entourage and Boardwalk Empire, and they loved it. And they said, if you could ever produce sort of a mini version of that, we'd love to show it to the studios, and I really think they would go for it. So I just looked for the right opportunity to make the movie, and that's exactly what we did.
That's pretty cool. So Andrews, can you talk about the process of how the concept of the monsters get created in your mind and on paper, or the whole process of it from beginning to the current version, the CG version of it?
Absolutely. That's probably one of the most interesting parts for me, and I think fascinating, was how do you create a monster out of a shadow? A shadow inherently is a two-dimensional object. And I really had to ask myself, like, what makes shadows so scary? Well, one of the things that makes them so scary is they're somewhat human, but they're not human. They don't have expressions, and it's hard for us to read, and we kind of impose our own fears on shadows. So as I was making the three-dimensional monster out of that, I had to consider, how do I get a two-dimensional object and pull it into a three-dimensional world? So the more we thought about it, the idea of a human-looking type of monster that maybe is a little bit elongated the way a shadow is and slightly distorted the way a shadow is, but give it no features, so no eyes, no mouth, no nothing, so that people can't read what it's thinking or feeling, and that made it that much more scarier. In some ways, it's kind of like the Jaws shark. There's dark eyes there, but you can't quite read what it's thinking, so that became the most ominous version. We tried a lot of things before we arrived at the one you'll see in the movie.
So did you draw a lot of different versions first, and did you go through the immediate step of actually creating a model, like a clay model or like a 3D printed model before you go to the 3G? Or what was that like for you?
Absolutely. It started really simply, just pulling references, and then we started sketching a bunch of different ideas. And then once we had a sketch, just a two-dimensional sketch that we really liked, we brought it into a 3D modeling program and started to create the creature. And that's when it really came to life. We used 3D to kind of render the creature, and then we actually had to use animation programs to give the creature joints in every single conceivable place so that it could be animated and move. That was kind of the hardest part. And then, on top of that, once you've created the creature, then you have to think about texture and skin. What does a Shadow Lurker skin look like? So all of that was done in 3D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the creatures itself, how long does it, I guess, what kind of software did you guys use to create it? And how long does it take to generate the 3D model? And did you guys animate the joints through software alone, or did you use the motion capture suit to actually create, like kind of cheat a little and
Yeah,
get the motion in.
well, that's actually interesting because we did originally start by filming somebody in a skin-tight, head-to-toe green screen suit. Because when I was filming it, I wasn't positive if we were going to use some human performance and then animate over the top of it, or whether it was going to be purely a 3D creature. Once we got into the editing, we realized that the 3D creature was going to give us the best results. So we did use the green suit motion capture as an example of how the creature would move, but in truth, the end result is fully a 3D creature. And in fact, what's also interesting is when you see the movie and you see the creature in the warehouse, even the warehouse is actually a CG creation. We took photos and we did photogrammetry onto the walls so that it could literally move out of a wall. So we have a shot in the movie where you see where it starts as a two-dimensional shadow and then it pulls off into the world. So we had to create the 3D model the entire world. So all of that is three-dimensional. Yeah.
That looks pretty cool. I mean, viewers out there, definitely, when you check out the featurette, definitely look at those scenes. I have to say, when I look at it, I thought, oh, that looks pretty real. I mean, I wasn't really thinking that was real or not real, so that it is pretty good. And the monsters, the scary.
That's the best compliment you can possibly get if you think it's actually maybe real. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk about also the sound design? I understand there are a lot of efforts put into the soundscape and for example, also the sound of the monster.
Yeah. No, absolutely. In fact, I found the sound design to be one of the most interesting parts. Particularly in the genre of sci-fi, horror, or thriller, sound design is almost 50% of the whole movie in terms of the emotional impact on a viewer. And you don't think about it, but take any movie like horror or thriller and turn off the sound and watch it, and you realize how less scary it really is. So when we're making the film and we're editing it, we didn't have all the sound design yet. So it was really hard to sort of envision what it could be. But once we got to the sound design phase, I was like a kid in a candy store because all of a sudden the movie came to life. And one of the coolest parts was actually making the creature sound. We found this actor. He's an amazing actor. Funny enough, all he does is specialize in making creature sound effects here in LA. And so for hours, we had a recording session of him doing everything from like these guttural breaths to like these breathing and grunts. And when you see the scene of him getting the Shadow Lurker coming out of the wall, just the sound of that. And yeah, so we spent days and days sound designing all those little moments. So that's really what kind of, I think, makes the movie come to life and even makes it scary. When you're in the movie, you'll see these people are trapped in a pool of light all around them. They know Shadow Lurkers are around them, and you can hear them sort of swarming. And it's just those subtle details that really help make the movie come to life.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the sound is the key. I mean, there are a few scary movies that I turned down the volume so that I'm not as scared.
Exactly. I had to turn down the volume on this one a few times.
So I understand there's also a story behind the actor and actress that you found for the film. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Absolutely. It kind of goes hand in hand with how we even made the short film. I was actually on a commercial shoot, and I just wrapped the commercial shoot, so I had all the equipment and all the gear and the crew who were all willing to do this with me as a favor. But what I didn't have was actors at the time, and we happened to be in Richmond, Virginia. It's not where I live. We were just on location, and coincidentally, Spielberg was filming this big new epic on Lincoln that's not even out yet. And I think it starred Daniel Day-Lewis, and Daniel Day-Lewis was off doing something. So all these actors were in town but not working. They were waiting for the production to start back up. So I held sort of an audition out of all these actors that were there and asked them, you know, I basically stole Spielberg's actors.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and I asked them if they were willing to do it, and they were so great. They really were good about giving me time. And so in 2 days, we shot everything, you know.
Wow, that's
so for all you know, we may watch Spielberg's Lincoln, and you'll recognize somebody from Shadow Lurkers.
So, what next for you with this project?
Pardon me? I'm sorry.
What's next for you with this project? This is not the final product, right? You want to take it somewhere, right?
No, that's a great question. Yeah. So this project itself is kind of an interesting hybrid. It's not quite a short film, and it's not quite a film trailer. It's, for lack of a better word, a teaser or a featurette. And the idea was to take the bigger movie idea and actually do 3-4 minutes of what it could look like, and then debut it on the internet and get fans to sort of get into it and behind it, and then take it to the studios, which is almost the reverse process of what you'd normally do trying to get a movie made in Hollywood. But the reason we thought this would be cool is because horror fans and thriller fans, they're so loyal and so into the genre. I mean, just go to any Comic-Con and you'll see how passionate those fans are. Well, I thought it'd be great to include fans on the internet, show them this trailer even before I showed the studios, funny enough, and get people excited about it so that the studios could see the excitement of fans behind it. So then we'll go take it to the studio, and the next step would be to make the full film. And what I think would be a great idea is to work with people like you on these Hangouts, Google Plus Hangouts, as we're making the movie, and give people insight to the behind the scenes, really from the ground level, from the very beginning, so that when the movie comes out, it's almost like everybody's sort of been there with me as we made it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So on that note, are you going to create an active blog or like network for your fan? I mean, nowadays there are films that kind of have people supporting them all along the way, and yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do that. And I think what I'd love to do is partner up with a few other existing blogs and forums. Anybody who wants to partner up with us, give us a shout. So that I could do Hangouts and document what we're doing as we're doing it. But then I think we'd also create sort of a Hangout or a forum, a blog of our own, just to sort of document the whole filmmaking process.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. So thank you very much, Andrews, for chatting with me today.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.